Then let's talk to somebody else. Let's go with Dale in Texas. She wants to talk about why she thinks the Baha'i in the Baha'i faith, women cannot serve in the Baha'i Universal House of Justice. And I don't know how you can possibly explain that without saying that you're a misogynist. Dale, you're live with Eric and V.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I've been referred to you all by Connor Vanacek, who is a regular on your program.
Okay.
And because he felt that as a man, he cannot answer this question from that viewpoint. And I think for me, the bottom line, and I've been a Baha'i for 50 years. I am a convert from Christianity.
Okay.
And for me, I didn't really dwell on that much when I was younger. I remember being Baha'i for 50 years, and I'm 69. I was part of a feminist period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at what our faith is, it is a worldwide religion. It is not a Christian religion, American religion, African religion. It is a worldwide religion. And as I watch, and the faith has been in existence for 200 years. And so when I look at what's going on in the United States, that actually is more backwards in terms, I think, of women's rights. The whole abortion thing is a good example of that, about what women can do with their bodies. And that the fact that we have had very few runs of women leaders in any country.
Mm-hmm.
We may have exceptional every once in a while with the EU and in Gandhi in India, and a woman who was in Pakistan. We don't see a run of it. We can't even see a woman getting elected in the United States. So for me, this being a worldwide religion where even we're not as advanced as some of the European countries in the role women play in their businesses, for me it is because the world is not ready. It isn't an American religion. And that's the only thing I can.
Sure. I kind of want to push back on that on a lot of really big places. So let me see if I can reframe this in a different way. Yeah. Sure. There are a lot of racists in the United States. The idea of an interracial relationship makes people, and has in the past made a lot of people, very, very uncomfortable. So maybe we should have not portrayed interracial relationships until everyone was ready. And maybe just kept people of color off TV until people were ready to deal with those things. Would you feel comfortable with that conversation or with that idea?
No, because it's good. That's a good point, because how many fights are you going to have? Remember, this religion is one of progressive revelation. This whole thing about the Universal House of Justice is good for 1,000 years. So being in the ground, working on eliminating racism, mm-hmm. and trying to see if even our local spiritual assemblies, which are the lowest level administration, can actually reflect the body of the community.
Okay.
Where you can perhaps majority women, and a lot of them don't.
You don't need majority women. All you need to do is show people women in power and show them that they are capable of leadership. Like, I feel like that would be the best way to do it. In fact, I would say that if that is the viewpoint, then you should be incentivized to have a lot more women in the Universal House of Justice, just so that you can break that. Right? I mean, I'm sure that you would agree. Well, I don't want to make the assumption. Dale, do you think that women are capable of being leaders as much as men?
Yes, I definitely agree with you. But I also understand that this is a global religion, mm-hmm. And that's all I can say about it. So you have 9 members, they're elected at large, no one has political clout, and the national assemblies, which have women on them, vote for that body, and it is extremely diverse. Okay,
so let's say that the voting goes that a woman gets the most votes. Then what happens?
It wouldn't, because they all know that they need to vote for a man.
Let's say, just for shits and giggles, that a woman got voted for. Would she?
It'd be interesting.
Would she be allowed into the Universal House of Justice, or would that just be an invalid thing, contrary to the will of the membership?
It would be invalid.
Dale, would you agree with me that that is not a good thing?
Well, I guess you're going to get the same reaction that most people will give when I say this, is that either Baha'u'llah is a messenger of God or he's not. And is there wisdom in this? And so we're going to accept what the manifestation said.
So,
whether I don't.
So why is that any better than any of the other religions? Because that's exactly what Christians say. You know that. You were a Christian before.
Right. But right now, we make a concentrated effort to try to deal with what's on the ground right now. And that is the equality of races, and trying to raise women up to do exactly what was stated about getting more women into authority.
So why that feels like that kind of feels like an exercise in futility, though. If your goal, which I agree with and think is a good one, is to get more women into positions of power, how on earth is that held up at the same level as, but they cannot be voted for into this universal house of justice? Like, one of those has to be wrong, right? They can't both be correct.
It could also be our contemporary view of what power is. I worked in city government. I know what power is.
Mm-hmm.
I serve as the chair of the local spiritual assembly of Round Rock. I know how that power can be abused. So what is voted on in the Universal House of Justice, and what we get from the Universal House of Justice, we don't have regular communications from it in the first place.
Okay.
Their major role is interpretive of what the writings actually say.
Oh, that's handy. That's so.
So you mean the people who could say that women are allowed get to
be the ones to
make the, yeah.
Wow.
The people who sit on the Universal House of Justice cannot abrogate any of the laws that Baha'u'llah wrote, period.
But they can interpret, right?
They'll just say what they normally say. In fact, it's wonderful because when you get something from the Universal House of Justice, they give you quotes. That's all they give. And then they have a final statement. These are the quotes. These are the quotations. It is unusual. It's unlike anyone has ever experienced. And you can choose to follow or not follow whatever's there. It's your spiritual responsibility, not theirs.
We're not trying to convert. What we're trying to do is
I mean you in general. I mean the collective you.
Sure.
The followers.
Yeah.
It's up to the followers.
Well, and
my dad also said that I could go to any college I wanted to because technically I was 18 and an adult. But if I didn't go to the college I went to, I would be disobeying him and he would be very disappointed in me. As an 18-year-old, how on earth was that actually my choice?
I really don't know how to make the connection.
The connection is, the Universal House of Justice said this one thing, but like you can totally do something else, but like our highest office said this other thing. So like, yeah, you're totally free, but also.
Remember what I said, and don't discount it, please. The Universal House of Justice does nothing more most of the time than go into our writings from Baha'u'llah and his son Abdul Baha and reiterates what those are. And to remind us more than anything, they're more like a guidance. But if I decide to go ahead and drink because we're not supposed to drink, that's my problem. It doesn't mean I'm going to be excommunicated.
So Dale, it sounds like your response to women aren't allowed to hold this position is, well, it's not that big of a deal anyway. Is that about right?
At this, I would say no. I would say that at this point in time, this is a world religion. The members of the communities throughout the world, not just the United States. In fact, the United States is not ready for a leader. They're not ready to accept it or anything that comes out of that body because it's more complex than just what us as liberals, and I am a liberal, think is right or wrong. It's more than that.
So I think
that's a completely different argument, though.
Yeah, at this point, I think we're going to go in a circle on that one, but I do have another question to ask you, Dale, while you're here.
Sure.
So the idea that women are inferior to men is something that I view as immoral. Would you agree?
If that is your precept and that is part of your logical argument, then that I would agree that that's what you believe.
No, I'm asking if that's what you believe.
Absolutely not. And I know we're going to go with logistically in using the syllogism. But women and men probably do have some different skills and skill sets. because we've been programmed for it to
So,
a great extent.
but they're not programmed inferior to men. Even if I granted you more than I was willing to grant you, I would not go with the conclusion that one sex is inferior to another. And to be clear, that is what is being stated when you look at that and you go, oh, women cannot serve in the highest roles. There is an inferiority beast to that. Women just can't do it. And
this is the justification for separate but equal back during the civil rights movement. There were plenty of people who were like, oh, like biologically there's no difference, but because of the history of slavery, like Black people just can't do the same things that we can. So like they're totally the same, but also like because of the way that they were programmed, we're going to have to separate them out. Like, is that an okay position to take?
I am going to come back and say that socially, in how we are socialized, it is something that is changing and morphing. And that within 1,000 years, the new manifestation will probably say all bets are off. So everybody is everywhere. And that's all I can say. It is a progressive revelation, and I buy it.
I'm going to call bullshit on that too, Dale, actually, because are you aware of the work of what is called familial evolutionists?
No.
Okay. Do you know Merlin Stone, Frederick Engels? Any of these names ringing a bell?
Yes, Frederick Engels does.
Okay. There is credible amounts of evidence, like very large piles of evidence, to suggest that up until about, I want to say 3000 BCE, the world was primarily run by women. Goddess
Correct.
worship was the norm. And there were very many societies that were very advanced for the time that they were in, who gave women the justice roles, the lawyer roles, the business person roles, and the men were the ones who backed them up. And then, of course, everything shifted once, the new, more patriarchal gods came into play and the Fertile Crescent expanded and all of this. If it's progressive revelation, why the fuck are we going backwards?
But then I would show it back on you. Why have we gone 3,000 years of patriarchal society? And what would make you think, or anyone think, that that's going to be changed in 1,000 years to allow women and to accept women? Remember, we don't run. People are elected because they are known in the community.
No. I'm not talking about the logistics of running for office. I'm talking about your theological claim of progressive revelation. That does not sound like progressive revelation to me. That sounds like regression.
And you haven't answered. I understand what you're saying, but can you answer me of why have we?
No, you get to. No, I asked you a question first. I want to know how you answer that. Then we can talk about the next thing.
Because we are not there, and you gave me the best example for it. 3,000 years of patriarchy. How do we think that that's going to change in 1,000 years?
Wait, what? No, I'm asking you how you justify your religious belief in progressive revelation with the actual history of how our world is run being regressive.
Okay, then you just answered my question. We have 3,000 years of a patriarchy.
We do not. We have 6,000 years of a patriarchy. BCE is before CE.
Correct. So we have 5,000 years.
Okay, Dale. You are clearly unable to answer this question, and that's fine. But just be honest about that. Connor is always very, very good at saying, hey, I'm going to do more thinking about this. I'm going to go away and think and come back. It's totally fine to do that. You don't need to have all the answers, but please be honest.
I feel I am being honest. I don't think that the world's ready for women in the top position right now. And this is my personal viewpoint.
Sure. And I think that, kind of buttoning it up, Dale, I think that your personal viewpoint,
that's right,
as that the world isn't ready, I just don't think that rises to the level of good enough.
Okay.
But the other thing here is, Dale, I think that if Baha'u'llah made a statement saying that women are inferior in the way of leadership, then talking to you and understanding that you would say that women are not inferior when it comes to leadership, I think that you are a more moral being than your God. I think that you have a better sense of ethic than the God that you worship. And I think that I wish that it would be consistent through, because I'd rather have a lot more yous than people saying saying the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of useless to have your viewpoint if you're not going to do anything about it. So, like, good for you. What are you doing about it?
Just helping raise girls to take leadership roles.
Fantastic. Let's just aspire a little bit higher, because I don't want people to aspire to second best, especially when they're thought to be disqualified based on the genetic lottery. It just doesn't feel right. And I don't think it feels right to you either.
Okay.
Dale, thank you so much for calling in, though. The fact that you took the grilling from us, and I sincerely appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate your questions also. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
You got angry. You got mad, bro.
Look. You have to deconstruct more than the specific religion that you were born into in order to actually escape it. And to me, all of the Baha'i that I have talked to so far, again, not everybody, no blanket statements here, but in my experience, the crossover between people who used to be Christians and just take that Christianity into this new faith and say, oh, well, I'm just a different person and this is a different faith, but also like all of the same apologetics, all of the same rationalization, all of the same talking points. Like, what actually are you doing except for, and I get it, Christianity isn't getting a really good reputation these last couple of years. So like, if you want to just get out of that stigma and be like, I'm not a Christian anymore, I'm this other thing, cool, that's fine, do that, but be honest about it. Don't act like you're this enlightened person if all you're doing is taking the same dark age mentalities into this other thing and saying, well, I'm progressive now. You're not. And I don't fucking care if you're a liberal. I don't care if you are a feminist in the quiet of your own home. If you aren't doing shit, if you're like, oh, the world's just not ready yet, then you are complicit. You are part of the problem. And you don't get to say, well, I don't personally agree with it, but I guess things are just gonna roll out the way they have been. Oh, well.
That's how you get 1,000 more years of patriarchy.
Exactly. How are we going to escape the patriarchy in 1,000 years? By not being Dale. Okay.
Oof.
I'm.
That said, I do also want to add on that I think that in general, Baha'i tend to have a lot more in common with secular humanists than most other faith traditions. But we're going to challenge you, because I think that's what we should be doing. We should be challenging each other to be the best versions of ourselves. And that includes Baha'i folks. Like that, that's just how that is.
Yep.
So anyway,